Oh, hi. I uh I just got back from the grid. No, I have to I want to make this as quick as possible while also going over as much important details and backstory as possible. Yeah, I have seen Tron Ares 25 times at this current point theatrically. I'm planning on 27. I'm going to see a couple more. There's a reason behind that. I guess I'll just say things as they come to mind because boy, I don't didn't take notes for this one, and I'm sure I'll forget a lot of things like my last video about the whole. And then in that last game 7, I was like, Boba Fett could hit a 3-run home run right now, number 11, and then he did on the next pitch, and it was perfect bookend to the. Anyway, um. I was born in 1983, a year after the original Tron. I grew up with both of my brothers being fans of the original film. Cool, just fun Disney film for kids. Um, it didn't become an obsessive thing until I got some DVD back in 2008, whatever it was. Um, And on that DVD, I can't remember what the DVD was. I still have it somewhere, but on that DVD was what they were actually calling the like concept trailer for Tron Legacy, the Tron sequel, and we were like, "What? What?" So we had a physical copy of this test footage that is now infamous, of course. That was like a trailer, and we watched that thing so many times. Oh my gosh, we were so excited for a new Tron movie. So then out came Tron Legacy in 2010, and we loved it. We saw it over and over. And then there was this new girl at work. I was working with one of my brothers at the time, and there was a new girl there who I was like, ugh, gross, get her away from me. But then one of our friends in our friend circle invited her along with us when my brother and I got people together to be like, you gotta see this Tron movie. And we took them all to the IMAX. The same IMAX theater where I realized I was in love with my ex-wife. That's a whole nother story. I don't even know why I said that. Anyway, well, because it's a significant building. And then when we get... Anyway, so... The first time I hung out with this new girl at work was when we went to see Tron. And she was like, oh my God, I loved it. And she became obsessed with the film and then kind of in a way became obsessed with me. And I had just gotten out of a really rough relationship, and that was my rebound from my divorce. So I was not interested in pursuing a woman ever again, nor have I been, nor will I be. But then, in my vulnerable point, she became very, she threw herself at me, so I went along with it. Next thing you know, after we were together for a while, she was pregnant, which I thought would never be something that would happen for me, becoming a father, which is the only thing I ever wanted. I was one of those kids who in elementary school, you'd be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't care if I'm working at McDonald's. I just want to have a family and come home to a child to raise. Like, literally, that was me. I just didn't think it was going to happen after I got divorced, and then, whoops. Anyway, so her and I were trying to figure out how to pick names, having this child, and we didn't know the sex yet. And we were like, okay, if it's a boy, we got this name. If it's a girl, we got this name. I picked the girl name, and it was going to be Tesla. Yeah, Tesla, because I was watching the show with a girl that I liked, and her name was Tessa, but I thought they were saying Tesla, so I went with Tesla. This was before Tesla was a thing, so thank God that didn't happen. But if it was a boy, his mother came up with the idea, well, how about Flynn? Because I love Tron, and the first time we hung out was to see Tron. So Flynn would be a great name. And I was like immediately I was like, oh, that's a great name. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right. If it's a boy, we'll go with Flynn. But we still didn't know what it was going to be. And every day we had all kinds of merch from Tron Legacy. I bought everything that I could get my hands on. I guess thank God they don't have merch for Tron 3 because I'd be broke. Not that I'm not. Anyway, so this was something I would press because he says random things every time you press the button. And so every time I would leave the house, I'd be like, let's see what Clue has to say. And some of them are things that aren't even in the movie. I think they're either deleted scenes or like teases for what would have been Tron 3. But I would just see what he would randomly say because there's no order to it whenever I'd leave the house. And then the day we were going to get the thing to see whether we were having a boy or a girl, I decided to click on him to see what he would say as I left the apartment. That's not what he said. But you see, because it's random. So how am I supposed to know? What he said was, when we left on our way to find out, mind you, the names were already picked out. Sweet, he took his cue. That's what he said. He literally says, frickin' Flynn lives. And I was like, am I about to find out I'm going to have a boy? I was really nervous about having a girl. I don't think I could handle that. Anyway, turned out I was having a boy. I find out a boy named Flynn. And so now we've got this child who is blessed upon me, the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And it not only is named after this franchise, mind you, but he would not exist if it wasn't for Tron Legacy. That's how his mother and I first hung out, and so on and so forth. Butterfly effect, right? So my son wouldn't exist without Tron. I wouldn't exist right here and now if it wasn't for my son, that's for damn sure. I'll tell you what, talk about purpose. So you have that, and then of course there was Tron 3 we're gonna get, and then Tron 3 never happened, and then here I am raising a child, and all of a sudden I had, at the time, an 11-year-old, and they're like, no, Tron 3 is really happening, and we've spent the last couple of years, amping up for this. My son grew up just Tron being this thing in his life, and then, of course, eventually grew up becoming a Tron fan, and, he loved, So we were very excited about the third film. And, okay, so I remember when the second one came out, my brother actually, back in the day, the movie theaters would have those, now they're all digital, where they're telling you what movie and what time is in that theater. Back in the day, it was literally like a physical, clear thing that the theaters would get mailed, and then they'd put up in their thing. Here's this one, and then you'd have your times in a different way. Anyway, my brother stole one of the Tron Legacy ones. I still have it. And it's the Tron, it's got Clue on one side and Kevin Flynn on the other side, staring each other down, and then Tron Legacy in the middle. It's actually really freaking cool. So, yeah. We bought all the merch from Tron Legacy. So we finally get to Tron 3, this movie that's actually happening, and it's literally my son's freaking birthright. And I'm like, we got to get ourselves on a light cycle somehow, because around that time is when they announced that they were going to bust out the Tron ride here in the United States, which only existed in Thailand or whatever before. And I'm like, we got to find a way to get on a light cycle. And I'm telling my friend, ring ring, we got to find a way to get to Disney World before Tron Ares comes out, because my son and I need to ride a light cycle. Period. We got to find a way. Hook up a group to make it a cheaper package. We got to make it happen. Two days after I had that conversation with my best friend, I get reached out by my son's grandparents, his mother's parents. It's a whole thing. She kept him from them. There was a custody thing. Custody became mine. They were like, hey, maybe you'll let us see our grandkid. Anyway, 2 days after having that conversation with my bestie about Disney World, his grandparents reach out of the blue, hoping to reconnect with him. Hey, we're going to Disney World. Do you want to come with us? What a perfect way for my son to reconnect with his grandparents. Which, yes, in retrospect, spoiler alert, everything turned out great. We went to frickin' Disney World, and my son and I, guess where I got the hat? My son and I rode light cycles together. That's a whole nother story. I believe I have a Disney World video about how crazy that story was, about how we got on those darn light cycles. But the point right here and now is, yes, we rode light cycles together. So we're very excited for Tron Ares. We buy the sound, because then they announced that Nine Inch Nails is doing the soundtrack, and I have been a Nine Inch Nails fan from their beginning, from the mid-90s. They've been one of my favorite all-time bands. I saw them with my bestie. Wasn't a great show. Got made. Man, I forgot to mention that in the video, that when we did re-see them, it was the same drummer in the Bad Show those years ago, and then he got redemption, because then it was... I tell you, these stories are so crazy, I can't even keep up with all the details. It gets crazier. So we're excited for Tron Ares, and it's his birthright, and we've ridden light cycles, and it's Nine Inch Nails, one of my favorite bands. And then my son and I, after he just turned 13, we end up going to see Nine Inch Nails live 2 months before the film, where they played As Alive As You Need Me To Be. Okay, and they also played my son's favorite song that made him a fan of theirs. And they played my favorite song that I've always wanted to hear live. And they played my bestie who came with us, her favorite song. It was an amazing experience. And the movie wasn't even out yet. So, you know, we might have bought some other merch and whatnot. Very excited for this film. So then the time came, and I'm a manager of a movie theater, so I have access. But I don't have this much. I mean, I could have technically watched it like 19 hours earlier, because I did have access to it, but I didn't because I had to watch it with my son. But I did get the tickets for the early screening for the Wednesday IMAX on October 8th. I bought the first 2 tickets, you better believe it. And I've ended up spending $150 on tickets alone on this film. And I get free tickets because I'm a manager at a movie theater. What does that tell you? Because I had to get that first IMAX screening. My theater doesn't have an IMAX, so I have to actually pay for those tickets. But I did, and it was almost a sold-out showing when the time came, and it was a surreal experience. Having my son Flynn sitting next to me, who's now 13, who 14 years ago wasn't even a glimmer yet, but existed thanks to the previous film, Legacy, that came out 15 years prior, and me having seen it with his mother in the same room. That IMAX theater. Okay? And now here I am sitting with my son and some stranger ready to watch Ares in IMAX, a 3D. A real IMAX 3D theater. I actually try... We'll get to that, because I've seen this in many different formats. So... the movie starts, you know, you got your little news thing. And then, for those of you who've seen the film, good for you. Apparently, most people are idiots and skipped out on the greatest visual and audio spectacle you could possibly ever have in a movie theater in your lifetime. So then it goes, and the little circuits go in your face, and this was 3D IMAX. So it literally was in my, and I was, the only way I could describe it was it felt like someone had scooped my brains out of my head, plopped them on the floor, and they lay there for days in the heat, frying in the sun. That's what it felt like when I was flooded with visual and audio overwhelmed stimulation at the beginning of Tron Ares. Tears flowing down my face. It was orgasmic. And then there was 2 hours of movie where I got to experience the brand new Nine Inch Nails album because my son and I decided when the album came out weeks before the film, no. We'd heard the one song, maybe a couple others because they were, singles or whatever. We weren't going to listen to even though we owned it physically. I have it on vinyl, exclusive, it's red. And we each have a copy of the CD, both with different covers. And I even have it on cassette tape, it's red. But we didn't listen to it before the film because we wanted to hear it for the film for the first time. And yes, thank God I did, because oh my gosh, what an overwhelming experience, because what an amazing film. It's a masterpiece. I'll get upset and I'll talk for another hour if I really go over all of the details of why Tron Ares is a freaking masterpiece. And there's nothing negative to say about it. And anyone who didn't even give it a chance is stupid, because that was the greatest. And I've seen a lot of movies. I've seen Dune Part 2. Okay, I've seen Star Wars. I've seen your Endgame. I've seen Memento. You name it. Decades I've lived my life seeing some life-changing films, whether it be independent or blockbuster. But I ain't never seen nothing like this. It got better every time. And there's people who didn't eat. Because I'll say this right now as someone who's seen it in 8 formats. Guess I'm counting them all. IMAX 3D is the best way. And again, the real IMAX 3D, because my IMAX is a real giant square IMAX 2-story tall freaking screen where the seats aren't just auditorium, they're like where the screen, that's your standard auditorium seats and the screen's right here. But then these ones are like this IMAX to where, yeah, the screen's right in your face no matter where you're sitting. That's a real IMAX. I go to freaking Denver and it's like freaking, oh, this screen's a little bit taller and it's standard stadium seating. So I'm still looking at this tiny screen like a regular movie theater. I'm like, you call this a freaking IMAX? Shame. Anyway, that first experience, exhilarating. I cried multiple times. I was blown away. The music, the story, finally a story about it. Okay, I guess spoiler alert. Finally a story about an AI that's not trying to kill us. They just want to live and be human. I could go on and on about the brilliance of the film. One of my favorite details, when they're on the light skimmer scene and all the water speckles are splashing on the lens of the camera. They're square. I watched this in audio description and learned words like voxel. I've been a Tron fan my whole life. I didn't know those little cube things they crumble into are technically called voxels. And I believe a voxel is a 3-dimensional cube in a cybernetic grid. Because, yeah, so I watched the IMAX 3D with my son, Flynn. He was really, really bummed that Tron wasn't in it. And he was really depressed for a few days that he didn't like it as much as he wanted to. I understood that it didn't have everything I wanted it to have, but it didn't take long for me to grasp that wouldn't have made sense, or we didn't need that, or I couldn't judge it for what it wasn't giving me. I only judged it for what it was giving me, and everything it was giving me was brilliant perfection, including a masterclass performance by Academy Award winner Jared Leto, who I've always been a fan of and have never seen him give a bad performance. He's an Oscar winner. This film had 2 Oscar winners? 3. Two winners and a couple other nominees. Anyway, in fact, I believe everyone in the cinematographer, let's see, this people who did the score. It's almost like a lot of talent was behind this perfect film. So that was an amazing, exhilarating experience. So then I saw it again and again and again and again. Like I said, I work in a movie theater. But for our second viewing, my son and I saw it in D-Box. Now, some formats I couldn't even have anywhere near me. I've never been to a 4, what is it, 4X? 4X? Where they spray you. I don't have one of those theaters in my state, okay? If there's a Tron 4 ever, which there won't be, but if there was, I'll go out of state for a 4X, okay? All right, we'll split the difference there. Now, I did see it in D-Box, though. We have D-Box. That's a Canadian company. And I love D-Box. I would see every movie in D-Box if it didn't cost me $50 freaking for 2 tickets. But D-Box is where the seats move like a ride, like one of them old school 90s things where you'd get into that freaking capsule at the at the mall, and they'd have the screen and the thing would move to make you feel like you're on a roller coaster. That's D-Box, but it's freaking wicked because it goes with the action. I remember seeing Star Wars and it rocked with the crawl. Like, no matter what you're seeing, the crawl, no matter what you're seeing, it's interacting with, it's very immersive. So it is worth it, especially if you're seeing certain films like freaking Tron Ares, where the D-Box, because it doesn't just move, it also vibrates, but it doesn't just vibrate, it has different spots on the chair where it vibrates. And there were parts in the film where different spots on the chair would vibrate to different notes of the music, because the music obviously is so important to this film. It's got to win the Oscar. I mean, how do you not? I would nominate this film for every single Oscar category. Every single one. Period. The end. The cinematography, my God. The directing, are you kidding me? The editing. I love this movie. And I've seen it 25 times. It never got boring. Ever. Gave me goosebumps multiple times. Made me cry multiple times. It's probably, what, 15 to 20 times that freaking one is all I want scene gets me. That's like the he's my son scene in Legacy. Don't get me started. So I saw it in IMAX 3D, and then I saw it in D-Box, and then I saw it in standard because I have access to it at work and could watch it as many times as I freaking wanted, whether it was before work or after work, or sometimes when I was cleaning theaters during work. Yeah, that's right. It counts. And then what else did I do? And then we saw it in Dolby to get the keychain, and I bought all this. I have every possible Tron merch that I've ever could possibly have access to in the world. I have every toy. I'm looking at 4 Funko Pops right there. I've got 3 posters on my wall, and that's just Ares. I've got the thing I was talking about. I've got the jacket from Disney World that lights up. I've got this thing. This is the new thing from Hot Topic. It's got the cool thing on the back. We got a new shirt. We got the AMC popcorn bucket. We got a backpack that's got the disc with the chips and stuff. I got all the chips. And it's got the thing that, does the music and the Bluetooth. And it's got the little secret thing when you press the button 5 times. Trust me, I'm the number 1 Tron fan that is the end-all, be-all, say-all. I get it. The new one doesn't have Tron. But Ares represents everything that Tron represented. Period, the end. That's why Flynn sees him off. It's so poetic that in Legacy, Flynn got to see off his flesh and blood creation, and then in Ares, he gets to see off his digital creation. Come on. I could go on and on about the brilliance of that film, but you can follow me on Letterboxd at Paul Charman or Dmoid, whatever it is. And, okay, so I saw all those formats, and then I just kept watching it. I kept watching it in standard 3D I saw in my theater. But then I discovered 2 formats that I'd never seen before that I had access to, because as an employee, I get free tickets. I just don't have these particular formats in my city, but I can drive to another city in my state and still get free tickets for these formats that they have. So I did. I drove 60 miles to watch this movie for the 20th time for the other formats, because I was watching a review where somebody was comparing the IMAX 3D with the Dolby 3D. And they said that the Dolby 3D looked better. And I was like, well, I can understand that because Dolby uses laser projectors. I do have a Dolby theater. Now, we don't have Dolby 3D at my theater. It's a thing. But we have a Dolby projector, so I'm well aware, I'm familiar with it using dual laser projectors. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course Dolby would give you better 3D if you're using a laser projector, because that's, granted, going to give you better picture, i.e. better 3D. And then I went, but overall, the best experience to see this movie would be IMAX, because you're getting full coverage. Again, a specific type of IMAX, apparently. Watch out. Not all IMAX theaters should be called IMAX theaters, if you ask me. And so I thought, well, wait a minute. So the best possible way that you could see a film would be to see IMAX 3D if that IMAX theater had a laser projector. Could you imagine? And then I thought, is there such a thing? Turns out there was. Turns out there was one 60 miles away that I happened to get free tickets to, which was also the same location of a Dolby theater with a 3D. So I drove 60 miles and figured, okay, full disclosure, make sure the kids are out of the room. All right? Nobody's watching this anyway. Since I was driving 60 miles, I figured I'd get 3 birds with 1 stone. So I got to the theater. And I got a Tron drink. I got one of them deals with the light up deals. It's pretty cool. They gave me bonus deals. But I got to the theater. See, I saw Tron Legacy as many times as I could, and in as many back then there wasn't different formats. I think I only saw it in regular 3D and Big D. But I did see Tron Legacy on shrooms. So I drove 60 miles and figured I may as well. So I took some shrooms and I watched Tron Ares in Dolby. Or no, first I took the shrooms and then I watched it in their IMAX 3D laser projector. Which, again, I was very disappointed by their theater layout and the screen size, especially. I thought, when I walked in there, I was like, oh, shoot, this is the wrong theater. I'm looking for the IMAX. And I literally walked out and I went, wait, it says it's the IMAX. And I go in there and I'm like, are you effing kidding me? You call this an IMAX? However, it was astounding 3D. I'll give them that. I would prefer... I think the screen was a little taller, but it was still rectangle. An IMAX screen is supposed to be a square. Okay? Period, the end. And it's supposed to be in your face. Not like a regular stadium auditorium seating and you're looking at the screen way up there. What the frick is the point of that? But the 3D was gorgeous because it was a laser projector. So I was like, well, then I'm in for a treat because I'm about to see it in Dolby 3D. So I had a fun experience with my drink that lasted me 4 hours. I guess technically 5. No, because the timing laid out right back to back. I literally watched it in IMAX 3D, having a grand old time, and then took my drink as soon as the credits ended, went to the next theater, right in the middle of the trailers, and watched it in Dolby 3D, which I had never seen Dolby 3D before. So they give you these weird... See, that's the thing. Your standard 3D, you got those standard 3D glasses, right? They're just like glasses. Okay. When I went and saw this particular IMAX 3D with the smaller screen, it was kind of like that. They're slightly different glasses, but they're about the same size. When I go to my IMAX theater in my city, the one that is like it should be, and it's giant rectangle with freaking screen in your face, because of that, you have like these giant 3D glasses that like take up, because you have to get the full coverage because the screen is covering all of your peripherals. That's why it's IMAX. It's not an IMAX if the screens appear like this. Come on. But in Dolby 3D, they're like goggles. They're like full coverage because they have the little color, like rainbow, like how you would look at the light and it would give that rainbow gleam in the light. I'm like, okay, that makes perfect sense because, and I could notice the difference in both lenses, kind of like the old school ones. They're both clear, but there was definitely a difference of shading, which makes perfect sense because, again, Dolby uses laser projectors, and it uses dual laser projectors. That's 2 projectors, 1 laser each laser being a different color. I believe it's green and pink. So, yeah, green and red. But, yeah, anyway. So then I see that Dolby 3D. And that was probably the crispest 3D I've ever seen in my life. So it was worth the drive for this specific movie, Tron Ares, to see it in those formats. But I'll stick with my local IMAX. And Dolby 3D was gorgeous and all, but not really worth the drive. That's all. So I would say in all the formats I did see, okay, so standard 3D, Dolby 3D, IMAX 3D, IMAX 3D with a laser projector, D-Box 3D, and audio description, which was really dope. audio description can be really entertaining, especially if you're going back to a movie you've seen quite a few times. I would highly recommend being like, hey, can I get the audio description headphones? It's really interesting, especially for a movie like Tron Ares, the kind of insanely descriptive words they had to use. Like I said, I learned voxel, which is like my new favorite word. And there was also glower. She said Dillinger was glowering. And then, oh, she also referred to Dillinger as boyish. So yes, I recommend. But I'm counting that as a different format, damn it. So yes, there's others I could have experienced if I was rich and could travel or something. I'm lucky to have gotten to experience as many as I did. I've never done this before. 8 different formats. 2 that I've never seen before, right back to back as a double feature in the span of 5 hours. Oh, that was a good time. And then I watched the Blue Jays. It was, man, it's been a ride. So I'm now at 25. Number 25 was yesterday, which is my new record. I have seen, man, this must be a long ass video if I took off the hat. I have seen Tron Ares now more times than I saw Dune Part 2 and Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, both of which I saw in theaters 24 times. Episode 1, it was 19 times on its initial release, and then 3 times for its anniversary re-release in 3D. And then it came out again, where I saw it 2 more times. Dune Part 2, which was, what, a year ago? I got a couple of those posters, too. I could do a whole thing. I'm pretty sure I have a few videos about Dune. The last one was about how it was my record for the most viewings. But I saw that movie 24 times in its initial theatrical release. And I was like, damn, I'm never breaking this record. I'm at 25 with Tron Ares, and I will be seeing it 2 more times, probably 1 more while I'm working. And then I'll be sure to get 1 more 3D squeezed in before we lose it in 3D. Just to say goodbye and enjoy those amazing visuals. Greatest visual effects ever put to film. It is my favorite movie of all time. Probably because of all of the reasons that I just spent 32 minutes discussing. As well as the reasons like it's amazing. For every single reason, and there's not a damn negative thing about it. It's frickin' Tron. It's frickin' Ares. Okay? 27. 25, 27. But yeah, Tron Ares is the most theatrical viewings I've ever seen. 8 formats. I know. So, if anybody has any arguments, bring them my way, because I would like to assume nobody is more of a Tron professional or specifically an Ares expert than me. Okay? I've had like 96 breakfast burritos. And honestly, I don't mind. So yeah, Tron Ares holds my record for the most theatrical viewings of my lifetime. At least for just over a year until Dune Part 3, that I'll probably see about 30 times. Anywho, Tron lives, Flynn lives, Ares lives. Got anything to leave off on, Clue?
Hunger is our destiny.
End of line.